Hey friends, West Stuff here with you this afternoon again with Brian Brogan, Joe Dukevich, and we're going to hit a little bit different topic. We were working on having a guest for today and it just didn't line up, but we wanted to be able to put something out there to add some value and speak into the community. So one of the topics that we've talked a lot about over these last few weeks as we've been doing this is we've talked about the idea of voices for leadership. But one of the questions, and Joe came up with this idea, he says, gosh, so many people think, well, do I really have a voice? And is my amazing voice, maybe it's just a whisper. And what we want to do today is we really want to dig into the idea of let's take that amazing voice you've got and change it from a whisper. Let's really elevate it. So gentlemen, kick things off for us.
Well, I think we gotta go. What's a whisper? What do you mean a whisper? We don't whisper. We talk loud, right? What does that mean? For me, we got this great book, right? Voices for Leadership, and has this great subline. Your pathway to becoming a more influential leader. And I think, even putting the book aside, how do you get your voice out? How do you show up? And you could talk in an empty room, right? You might as well be whispering. No one's going to hear you, right? And I've had so many clients, just when I'm mentoring them, talking, coaching them through where they're at and what they want to accomplish. I want a bigger voice at the table. Well, what's that voice you have right now at the table? Do they know you're in the room? And I think, as authors, or people thinking about writing, they're just trying to figure out what to put in a book or a chapter or an ebook, whatever. And is it going to be received? Are they talking to somebody? Are they reaching somebody through those words that they want to reach? Do they know? It takes two, right? It takes two for a dialogue.
As I hear Joe talk about that, and Wes is mentioning about this voice that we have, unique voice that we have. I was at an event yesterday and the day before, and one of our co-authors, Glenn Gonzalez, he's the CEO of Jettit, a former fighter pilot, amazing story, and one of our co-authors. And he was on the stage, and at the end there was a panel, and all of the speakers were asked a question. All three of them were authors. And so somebody from the audience said, you know what, I want to become an author. How do you begin to become an author? And the two other speakers, said some things. Glenn surprised me from the stage and said, well, there's this community. It's called the Voices for Leadership Community, and the founder is sitting right there. So Glenn pointed, but when I thought about that, Glenn actually in his bio and on his presentation, the cover of our book was up there on the screen as he was speaking. And I was just sitting in the audience of over 150 people at Boeing, just dumbfounded that if I never started this, I would have never had that opportunity to see that done. And for him to share that opportunity with others and tell them what an important opportunity it was, it's my voice. And now it's collectively our voice. That has just been, as people say, you can't do anything until you get started. And so I'm grateful and thankful. But what Glenn shared with that person was only you can write your story. Only you can tell your story. And if you tell it like this where nobody can hear it, it doesn't. I said, if you tell it like this and nobody can hear it, it doesn't have any impact or any effect. So I just want to share that. Hey, that's what we're trying to create here, a community where you're watching this today, you're watching this later, you can share your voice with the world.
So as I'm hearing each of you guys share that stuff, I'm thinking about the idea of whisper, and maybe it's not because I'm kind of loud. I mean, if I'm in a room and if Cindy and I are delivering together, I don't need a microphone. She usually does. She's tiny. She's a lot more reserved and so on. I don't whisper, but gosh, this society today, because of social media and where Simon Sinek talks about that dopamine from getting the likes and the shares and all that, we want so much in immediate feedback and immediate recognition to feel like we're approved of, right? We that matters so much to people. And let's be honest, sometimes when we're building that, there's a lot of folks that feel like, gosh, who are really paying attention? What's important about me? I'm just And each of you guys through this process, I've heard you comment about don't underestimate what you're good at, because what we think is okay, somebody else gets a lot of, I almost swore right there. I don't know if y'all saw me. Some other folks get a lot of value because we've worked to craft and hone those skills that we can add a lot of value. And we think hey, we're just whispering, but people are paying attention that we may never know about. I've got a buddy, and then I'll turn it back to you guys. I've got a buddy that says, hey, Wes, through some of the stuff that I've written, or that you write and you do, and some of these things over the last, since 2015, when Cindy and I started the business, his words are, you'll never know this side of heaven, the people that you impact through that. And I think that goes for all of us, and not just the three of us here, but anybody that's listening to this. We'll never know this side of heaven. And you can have your own faith and be wrong. That's okay. But we won't know this side of heaven who's really impacted by our voice that we think is just a whisper.
Right. And what you both pointed out was something that I think is important, is one, how do you approach it? How do you come across? Do you come across as, well, I like to, think about telling you something about my life, or do you come across, hey, I've really got to tell you this about my life, and you both brought this up. And how do you approach with conviction, with authenticity about your experience? And your experience is important, especially if you're thinking there's somebody out there that needs your message, someone out there that really needs to hear that story. You're trying to reach them, or trying to, be the superhero that wipes away the problem, wipes away the bias, wipes away the crime, wipes away, fill in the blank, really. We're trying to, as Simon Sinek would say, play the infinite game. We're trying to reach for something that's deep inside of us. There's a purpose that we have, a story that we have that supports that purpose of helping somebody else walk through faster, further, alongside, feeling that there's somebody else with them that has gone through it and they can learn. And I looked at themuse.com. It just popped up in a search, right? But it pointed out to me something that's very important. We got to recognize there's problems wherever we go. Problems in the workplace, problems in organizations, problem in your social group, where sometimes we just want to be liked. And we got to get over that. We got a message, and we can't just go and say, well, I feel like I need to, this is really on my heart. And, and it's like, just get to the point. But we have to get over this thought that we don't have a voice until we're liked.
Wes began his dialogue with, I'm just, and fill in the blank. I mean, I'm just, how many of us tell ourselves those things? And as we sit here and talk about this amazing community, I'm still trying to convince myself how amazing it is, and how. But every time I say it, and every time I hear it from others, it becomes more amazing.
Yes.
Every time I hear that voice, it becomes more amazing. But Wes reminded me, both Wes and Joe know that I've been a mentor in the high schools for about 10 years now, and we asked our students to get up and talk about what their parents did for a vocation, and one of them said, "Well, my mom, she's just a teacher," and I stopped him and I said, hold on. Let's back up here. Your mom is not just a teacher. Your mom educates doctors, lawyers, sports stars. The people that are in her classroom are getting a foundation of education to go on and do something amazing. And they can't do it without your mom as a teacher. And I think that's what we have to recognize is everyone is contributing something amazing to society and to community.
I'll go so far as to say everybody has the opportunity to. Unfortunately, I see a bunch of folks choose not to, and that hurts my heart. That's one of those things that sometimes it's sad and sometimes it's angering, right? When you see somebody, in one of the lessons Cindy and I do, I talked about, I give the opening slide, I talk about the word potential and how much it changes when we talk about the person that has unfulfilled potential, or they have so much potential, or or that person that's exceeded potential. And Brian, it's just that is, gosh, how do we go about beyond what anybody sees as our potential? And it's really through, gosh, how do we hone that voice? Joe, what a great topic you came up with for this conversation. How do you make sure we elevate it?
Mm-hmm. And we can, I put this title through a headline score, and it said, wow, this is, really unique and really cool, and can be understood by a 2-year-old. I mean, a second grader, second grader. I thought, wow, I don't know how many second graders understand about elevating your voice, but I'd like to talk to some.
So, Joe, you set this up for me then so I could understand it. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brian and I are just the construction guys.
Yeah.
Just
as I read that title, and I agree, it's a solid title. I mean, it really is a question to ask yourself. But let me ask you this: do you want your business to be a whisper? Do you want your message to be a whisper? Anything you're working on, do you really want it to be so inaudible that no one can hear? There's a time and place for whispering, to keep a secret, to do something, but it's not when we're trying to let everyone else know, some important message, some unique message that only you can tell.
Right. And as it's been said, if not now, then when?
What about tomorrow? Tomorrow, Joe, I can put this. I can wait till tomorrow.
Tomorrow never comes. It's also been said. But
I went to a restaurant one time and they had a sign up that said "free coffee tomorrow," and I went back the next day and it still said the same thing. It was still tomorrow.
That's outstanding. Yeah, I think you made a Garth Brooks reference there, Joe. That was fun.
Awesome. Right. Yeah, I quote the stars.
Oh,
but go ahead, Wes.
Oh, I was going to say the last note that I said, one of the last notes that I see on your page that you put together, Joe, was do your homework. And I think that's one of the things I see people miss, in that, whether there's been a bunch of folks that Cindy and I've seen over the last 10 years that said, hey, we want to do consulting, we want to do training, we want to do some of the stuff you do. And I said, well, that's okay. And we've heard John say this, are you willing to do what I did?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't feel like we've done anything necessarily special, but we've been stinking consistent in the process. But when it comes to training, when it comes to speaking, and when it comes to making sure that voice isn't whisper, we got to make darn sure we do our homework, right? Because it's showing up's only part of it. I mean, how do we make sure that we know we're speaking to that right audience? Joe, another thing that you've got in there talks about know exactly what you're going to say and when, and think about your language. And, my friend Chris Rollins taught me this idea of the platinum rule with communication. Communicate with others like they need you to communicate with them, not like you want them to communicate with you. So there's a bunch of pieces there.
Yeah, there's a lot in that list just to get, one of those. If you can perfect one of those, you'd be further ahead. And in the workplace, it's much more challenging. I know, I look at that list and I said, for me as a white male, I had some of that paved, but I still had to work at it. But I know there were, women, whatever, women of whatever race, whatever, just women, period. Let's just break it down, male, female, right? There were women in my workplace that had to struggle, were pushed aside, felt inadequate. And I know, in talking with the people I've been mentoring, that they feel that same thing. So it's a universal aspect. It's how do we show up? Do we stand for something, bring their voice forward so that people take notice? Somebody will take notice, and somebody will promote that idea, help you promote that idea. But until you get it out, until you get into that room, and Brian puts out this, I don't want to take Brian's thunder away here, but your voice and message is unique. Use it to add value to others. And that's where the whole idea of this book, about any book, is really about putting yourself out there and using your voice, your unique voice, to add value to others.
You know, one thing I like about our community and any other community that's similar is if you add multiple speakers, and I'm talking about the actual equipment speaker, you're going to get more sound, you're going to get more volume. And I love that about our community is we're helping promote each other. When I see something from one of our community members, I'm liking, I'm commenting on it, and they're doing the same for me. And we wouldn't be connected if it wasn't for this community. And that voice can be amplified because of the multiplication throughout the community. We signed up Dave Sanderson. He has joined us recently. And when I think about Dave, he's got an amazing story. He was the last passenger off of the airplane that was Miracle on the Hudson. But then I think about, you know what? There's over 200 people that were standing on those wings with Dave. And there's two people, there may be three, maybe the co-pilot, but we know who Sully is, and we know who Dave Sanderson is. Where's the story from all those other people? You know, I mean, they have this amazing story to tell, and I don't know of many of them that are having a conversation around, hey, I was there and we survived because we did. And Dave does that. He really tells the story about how they were standing in freezing water, and he's been on my podcast, and I didn't even remember that it was freezing water that you're standing in trying to evacuate people from an airplane. It's a phenomenal story, and there's still over 200 people that, as far as I know, they're not out there, pushing the message like using it. That's an incredible story, and everyone has incredible stories. Maybe not that well known, but everybody has stories they can tell and that can help other people.
And that's actually a great point. You have lots of great points here, Brian, in that message. But the one that sticks out to me is this idea of, okay, event happens. You're standing out on the wing, you're in water, you're trying to not fall in the water, you're trying to stay upright, help the last people off the plane, whatever, to get out there. But what happens after that point? So there's so many lives, there's 200 plus lives, right? That something happened after that point. And that's okay, we can talk about that one event, but what have you done, or what has inspired people? What has helped people from that point? What have you changed about yourself? And there's,
you were talking about, events happening, tragedy happening. My latest blog article is about my stepbrother who passed away in January. Amazing. He was 38 years old, and yet he lived life to its fullest. And so I wrote, when I was at his funeral and they asked me to speak, I realized he lived life to the fullest. And I thought, well, this is a blog article. I should tell the world about Chuck. And I wish I would have told Chuck how much I was just infatuated with what he had done and accomplished in his life. So I wrote that blog article. And then one of our featured authors from Volume 1, Eileen Madar, asked me to guest blog on her blog. Now, listen, I don't have a whole lot of people coming to my website, but Eileen McDar has a ton of people coming to her website. And I would never have had that opportunity had I not been vulnerable and shared the story about my Chuck, try to write something. And then it led to being invited to guest blog on a National Speakers Association global guru person's website. So just what you can write and what you can say and what you can share with others can lead to exponential things you have no idea of today.
Right. The platform increases as the awareness comes up, and the platform increases as the need is greater. Right.
Yes.
Brian, as you share that, it makes me think I've become friends with a gentleman who was in Somalia in 1991. He was there doing some work. He wasn't military. He was an NGO doing some work on building and doing some philanthropist stuff. And it was just after Black Hawk Down, and he hit a landmine. He lost one of his legs on the spot. He lost the other foot. And if you were to Google the guy, I'm not going to tell you his name because he's got a cool story that I'll share that another time. But he made the comment about when they hit the landmine, he looks down, he sees blood everywhere. He knows it's him. He's able to pull himself out of the vehicle that they're in that had just been blown up. And he shows pictures of it. And he said right then and there, he realized, I'm going to die. And he knew it, but time kept going on, and he's not. And he goes on to share the story of, and that's when I realized, what am I going to do from here on? So let's go back to the other 198 people on the wings of that plane. What are you going to do from this point on? Because you were just given an extra. And I won't speak for you guys, but this old boy's done some dumb stuff that, praise God, I got to live through. And that's kind of a challenge on a daily basis of how do I make sure that it wasn't a wasted opportunity, that I got to live through this stupidity of my youth, if you will. And my friend Ken hammered that message when he shared, and I'm thankful he's speaking for a group for me not too long from now too, but I'll tell you more about that another time.
Well, I didn't do something stupid, but I did, well, maybe I did.
Of course you didn't, Joe.
But a deer popped up out of nowhere and, almost ended it. So it could have been a much more disastrous event for me, and that voice would have not gotten out.
Yeah, y'all don't have time in your day to hear my dumb stuff, so I'm just going to leave it at, trust me, it was dumb.
That's a whole nother book.
Maybe more. Yeah.
As we're talking about these different, scenarios and things that people have a voice. While I was at this Bowie event and we did the speed networking thing, and I asked many of them, but one of them in particular, I said, what's the greatest accomplishment you've made? It had to be a logistics guy for the Navy. And he said, well, let me tell you about this one time where we were about to run out of eggs on an aircraft carrier. He said, eggs are important on an aircraft carrier. And so he's trying to figure out logistically how to get eggs to an aircraft carrier when along comes a request from the Air Force to land a jet on the aircraft carrier. And he said, well, listen, you can take your jet to our aircraft carrier, but I need you to make a stop and pick up eggs in the jet to put on it. But when I think about that, so I'm going to use that story and some of my things about collaboration and working together. But what if that guy that put that together told that story? It's just, you have stories like that where things lined up and things happened, and they're amazing stories. And you can amplify that and share that voice with others. That's the kind of stuff we're talking about.
And as you say, all those, as each of us share those more and more of these different things, of those whispers that truly are real voices come to mind. And we could probably go on the topic for days. I'm looking as we do this, guys. I'm going to put the banner up right quick, because the whole reason we've been doing this, if you're watching this live, you're watching recorded, whatever, the whole reason we do this is because in just over 2 weeks, right? I don't know just over 2 weeks, in 16 days, there will be the inaugural Voices for Leadership retreat in St. Petersburg, Florida. And Brian, I know you've been working hard to finalize a lot of the details and so on. I'm sharing the link on the screen, but I'll also pop it in the comments too. It's going to be a cool opportunity for folks to really take it farther than what we're sharing today and learn to amplify that voice. How can you elevate it? How can you amplify it? How can you collaborate? We've talked about a lot of those topics.
Yeah, most definitely. And like you said, man, we're only 14 days away from an opportunity to become part. This is one of the events, the only live event we've had with our community, that you can come together, meet some of our authors, get in tune with some of them, learn what they did, how they're doing it. And then also some of our speakers are going to just pour into you on how to amplify your voice. I mean, that's the key of the event, is amplifying your voice and amplifying your business. And the takeaways, I believe, are going to be phenomenal. I think people are going to walk away with some relationships that they can actually, turn in and be valuable to each other, and get some just real opportunities to learn from each other and grow with each other. I shared something Joe and I were actually typing together on our Google Docs, and I said, you have to show up to go up. We've heard that before, but think about that. You got to be in the room if you want things to happen.
Mm-hmm. And Brian and Wes, you both know we wanted to add value to, just not show people, oh, there's this event, right? And in these 7 episodes, we've had some great conversations of helping people like you out there take something away, add something different, change a habit, improve their voice, lift your ability to write, communicate more effectively, show up knowing what is needed. Our last episode with Dr. Kelvin McCree, I mean, he gave some wonderful power information, power pleas of, show up with the three things that the meeting planners want, you know, because they're filling a need. They've been charged to fill a need. And, you know, how do we do that? Well, we show up at this retreat. We show up in other things that we have going here on Voices for Leadership. We show up on these podcasts to just connect with people. And, you know, we're always looking for questions, you know, that we can handle live. But I think one of the things I walk away with is just the power of being able to be here, three voices together. And I'm learning from each of you. And I hope all of you that are watching this and on the replays are walking away with something of value that you can use to raise your voice, elevate your voice.
Joe, I appreciate you bringing up that, looking back at all these sessions we've had. It's been amazing. I didn't realize we had that many. And when I look back at the notes today, there's a ton of content and value just in these episodes, much less when we're able to get together and come together in person, hear from these folks and work and collaborate with each other. That's what I'm very looking forward to.
So, Brian, one of the things that I've done recently on the page, that in the comments on all the platforms this is being broadcast to, the registrations there, you've got the schedule, the down and dirty. Here's what we're doing throughout. So is there anything specific you'd like to highlight as we're wrapping this up today?
You know, I think the podcaster panel is going to be a lot of fun. There's several podcasters that are part of this community and are going to be on the panel, and then from the room trying to figure out, you know, should you be a guest on a podcast? Should you start a podcast? We're going to try to get you clarity around those answers as far as the podcasting goes. Dr. Kelvin McCree, we've already had a conversation about him and what he's going to do and tell us about, you know, many coaches have training sessions and they have, you know, things they deliver in a workshop style, but how to take that and convert it to a speaking engagement that actually pays more than what you're getting for your workshops. I'm extremely interested in that. When he was talking about the three things to deliver to an event planner, I don't have that experience. And so I'm looking forward to hearing from Dr. Kelvin McCree about that. And it's power packed. I mean, we all worked together to plan this and really thought into what would provide value to the attendees. And I think that that's been done. Hopefully we're conveying that value, and you'll decide to join us for this event in 2 weeks away. It's time to register.
Yeah. Truth be told, Brian, what he shared with us last week and what he'll be sharing in that keynote, that juice is worth the squeeze by itself.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
I love the Florida tie-in there, Wes. That's just great.
Get that orange juice in the room. We got to have Florida orange juice the day of the event. We certainly do. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Hey, and I mean, if nothing else, man, like Wes has said several times, of course, you know, where you're from, it's going to be important. The weather is going to be Florida in April. I mean, who could beat that?
The first time Cindy and I were in the St. Petersburg area was, I think, 2011 or 2012. And it was in early April or late March. And since that point in time, we've been to Florida no less than 2 or 3 times a year ever since. Because, hey, if there's going to be another place that we're at other than the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia, it needs to be there because it's stinking amazing.
Yeah, and I'm hopeful that you know, that having that time together to be intentional, to come together and think through these amazing things, these topics that we decided were going to be important to coaches, trainers, speakers, and authors, that the takeaways will be we're going to provide way more value than the expense of the event.
Well, and I was about to say earlier, and ADHD got the better of me. From what Kelvin shared with us last week, if somebody doesn't, it's because they didn't act on it. There. Because the package is there. There. We'll say it again. The juice will be worth the squeeze, but you got to squeeze.
That's a fact. You got to be there. Put your hands on the orange. Give it that squeeze. You can't be doing virtual squeezing. We do have that virtual option, but I think it's going to be more volume and more value in the room.
Amen to that.
You're right. You are right.
Guys, any parting thoughts as we wind this down?
let's elevate it. Let's, don't, everybody's got a voice, everybody's got a volume, but there's still the intensity, the energy, the emotion behind how you deliver is an important aspect. And when you decide to show up, when's the right time? What are you going to say? Let's get it out there. Let's step forward, not be one of the 199 on the plane wing, but be the ones that are telling the story, telling the parable.
As I think about it, we all of us know, but some people that we had that conversation about 87% of people want to write a book and only 1% people do it.
Right.
Written word is a legacy. It's a legacy builder. It's something that you can take, your children, grandchildren can pass it down. My mom, my dad was in a book. That's one of the things that this community delivers. If you just want to stick your toe in the water as an author, you can do it through this community. If you don't want to be an author, but you want to learn how to amplify your voice in speaking or learn how to collaborate with coaches and trainers, it's all part of this package that we're offering.
The options are there, guys. We look forward to whomever makes the decision. Hey, how do we take that next step? Join us. It'll be a good time. There's lots of options in the comments or the registration things. Reach out to any of the three of us too. If there's questions that you want to take offline, do that. Happy to chat. You're seeing this whenever. We're not hard to find. These guys might be hard to find. I probably be Googled. So anyway, I won't go down that path. We don't have the time in the day for that. But appreciate this opportunity to chat with you guys again here. Thanks for hanging out with me, and look forward to seeing you in person. We'll do this probably another time or two before, but look forward to seeing you in person in just 2 weeks. So that's it. Make it a great day, folks, and God bless you.
Thanks all. Thanks, Wes. Thanks, Brian. Talk soon.
Thank you.